Scott. I'm first and foremost, man. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I'm really grateful you're able to give me some of your time and share your stories and what you're doing now with my audience. So thank you very much and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Right on, brother. So with that, I'll kind of let's get into it a bit so people kind of understand who you are and stuff like that. Um, so talk to me a bit about your life story, but more so just starting from your transition, like leaving post-secondary school, because you were a military man, correct?
Yes, I was. Yeah. Well, when I left high school. I was a rugby player. I was all over the place with that, and I just kind of needed more. I was just heading down the wrong roads in some ways, and I joined the military. I stayed in. I was in Hamilton area. I was in the Argyle and Southern Highlanders for almost 8 years, and before I went to the regular army. So I did that. I was in the regular army for about 17 years. I started out as infantry and then I was admin. And in that time, I had three tours: one to Yugoslavia, two to Afghanistan, and I lived in upstate New York for 3 years.
Oh wow. So that was in like out in your 20s.
Yeah, no, well, when I was in, it was only about 2000, right after Afghanistan. So 2011, I got posted to upstate New York.
Oh, nice.
And I was going through some troubles while I was there. Right?
Yeah.
Not all looking over, right? And things led, but that's where it was. And after that, I came back to Ottawa, and I've been here ever since.
Nice. So take us through that if you can, like for detail, because I think the detail of these stories is very, very fascinating.
Yeah.
But I also know some people might not want to get too into detail, right, and stuff like that. So I'm curious, take us through like your first deployment.
First deployment, I was still a reservist. Actually, I
Oh,
deployed
cool.
with First Battalion, Royal Canadian Red Cross Company, to Drvar, Bosnia Herzegovina. There, it was bit of a pressure cooker at the time between the different factions,
Yeah.
and it turned into a riot in the town in April 1998. And after that, it was trying to get the people together again, talking with the UN. And I was in a pretty good job. I was CIMIC, civil military cooperation, so I got to deal directly with people in the town, and talking directly with them
Nice.
and trying to understand where they were at the time too, as well.
What were some challenges of that, and what were some like things that you kind of maybe didn't expect to go well, but did go well? Like,
Some of the challenges, definitely, history was a challenge in that area, in the Bosnia, the Yugoslavia
yeah,
area. Uh, Between the different factions, at times they or the different religions, they hold grudges from 60, 70 years
oh
ago,
wow,
from the Second World War time. His grandfather killed my grandfather. You know, and they still hold things to today. And as we know, there was a lot of genocide and whatnot
yeah,
in the Balkans region at the time, and it was it was unfortunate. So unfortunate with that. I don't even want to say the word unfortunate.
yeah.
It was life changing at times with the genocide of just how that war went. And things, things that went right, when we came out of the riots, in April, and trying to get people to sit down and talk, with the UN, with NATO, with the the Serbians, with the Croatians. It was a big round table, and it got off the ground. It's led to peace. They're still holding peace there 20 some years later, and
Yeah.
it's a peace is a good thing, especially in that region.
Man, with so you mentioned that. So I'm curious, you might have mentioned it, but what was the timeline like you were in Bosnia?
I
Like
was there
what was the year roughly?
January to July 1998.
Oh wow. Okay, so like in it. Like back when,
Yeah,
oh
it,
man.
it was just after the war had ended. We
Yeah.
were kind of like the cleanup almost. I hate that word. I hate to say it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the war had pretty much ended, and we were kind of trying to bring the groups together, which in itself was a job at times.
Yeah, you don't say. Like, how do you, what are the strategies to bring those two different or multiple different groups of people together, especially when they have had such a, like, I can't really even imagine thinking like, oh man, his grandpa fought mine in the 70s. So now like we're still
In
butting
the
heads
40s.
50 years later. Oh yeah, so like these. So even more, like even further
Yeah,
into like 50, 60, 70 years, like you said, man, like how do you even begin? Like, is there a strategy in place? Like, how do you even begin to bring them to the table?
there's never a strategy. It's just you start talking, because the strategies can go out the window so fast in those situations, to be honest, right?
Okay.
And then it can turn to religion, because there's always different aspects of it, whether it's
Mhm.
religion or people's lives, or the not caring of people's lives.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking at times too, because you see the children that suffered, right, and whatnot, especially there where it's almost like a Western world country, right? It's
Yeah.
a lot of land isn't too different in the Yugoslavia area, isn't too different from where we live
Hmm.
in Ontario. It's beautiful country, and then it's once again everything that's taken it apart.
Yeah. I asked about that timeline because I went like when my friend and I did a road trip after we graduated college, we went into Bosnia. Like we drove through Sarajevo from Romania. I think it was from Romania. Yeah, from Romania to no, to Serbia to Bosnia. So that's what we did. We did the whole up and then up the shoe and up the coast and rid it back
Yeah,
all the way to France. But yeah, that was man, because it's funny I asked because even what would you say that's like 20 years later? Because we went like 2018 in the fall. And I remember 20 years later, you could clearly see a difference of like what buildings were kind of more important than others. And also in a sense, like some were taken care of, whereas some were painted brand new. It looked like it had just been done a month ago. And then there was like, you can see in like the older, more rundown areas when we kind of got out of Sarajevo that you could see like bullet holes.
yeah.
And right. And like you think, oh, maybe they're not bullet holes. Maybe there's something. No, it's clear as day.
That
That's what it was.
it
Wild.
Sarajevo saw some of the heaviest fighting through
Yeah.
that war. And if you were on the coast, you saw it. There was parts of the coast that never got touched because they were paying off the different armies to not.
What?
Yeah,
That's
so get
wild.
their mafia, the different mafias almost were running in the background for everything, right? So
Interesting.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah. So, do you have like, as we kind of go forward into it, then from there, when did Afghanistan came after? So it was Bosnia was the first,
yeah,
and then
98, yeah, and then Afghanistan. The first time I went to Afghanistan was 2007.
oh, okay, yes, like what, 9 years later, 9, 10 years later?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jeez,
Uh,
what?
I was with the Vandus out of Quebec, and I was with. I'm trying to remember the name of the I was with. We were attached with the Afghans. So Omelette, sorry, operational mentoring liaison team. So
Oh, okay,
we were attached to the Afghanis, so we were trying to
yeah.
teach them how to be an army.
How do you go about doing that? Like that's, jeez,
It, very brave men, the Afghanis, but not a lot.
yeah,
Just it was weird. It was weird at times, like accepting their culture. Some of the weird, almost horrible, yeah, absolutely horrible things that happened in their culture that you would never think of in the Western world. You
yeah.
know, being with them at different times, living with them at times. It was different. It was different all the time.
And what was something, Scott, that kind of that like almost blew your mind and something that like when dealing with the Afghans was something that stood out as like, huh, that's really weird. I never thought that would be an issue. Maybe they like didn't know how to count or something like that. I don't know.
That um, the education was next to zero for the average Afghani.
And I can't even fathom that.
Yeah, mostly when they would sign, because I helped, I did a lot with the admin side with the army, and a lot of it was just a thumbprint or an X to sign for their pay.
Oh wow.
So they couldn't count. Just, just go online, just go on YouTube and put
Yeah.
in Afghani Army doing jumping jacks.
Oh no.
It shows the what we went through.
Oh man. Man, that's wild. Yeah, I would have never thought like because it's hard to kind of imagine when people say like, oh, there might have been challenges working with these people, but I can only imagine that. Wow, like
There
it's
were
how do
bigger
you
there were bigger challenges than that I I wouldn't talk about on recorded side.
Yeah, I was gonna
Not,
say, I was like, it'd be interesting, but I'm sure you shouldn't.
yeah, yeah. It's there was some offline. I'll talk about it, but
Yeah, I'm curious.
there was some there's some pretty horrible things that we in the Western world would be absolutely shocked at if it was.
Yeah, I can only imagine. 'Cause,
No.
yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious. I'll put a pin in that one for after because
Yeah,
I'd like to know, but yeah, it's probably best. But man, because I think there's a lot of things that we're very, very privileged here. I think like more so than a lot of places, and
yeah,
I can only so just kind of talking to you now actually, and kind of talking to Terry and talking to just people and like reading about like your story and stuff like that. Just out of curiosity, just kind of like almost a random question. But so you seem like a very like pretty positive guy talking to you and just reading. Like you always seem to have just the like in the way you kind of. I don't feel like you're saying it as if like you're like feel bad for a situation you've been in or stuff like that, or feel bad for what you've seen. Like you don't strike me as doing that at all. So I'm wondering, how do you stay or positive, and how do you stay like towards the goals and persistent, having seen like all of what you've seen?
it took a lot of learning because 5 6 years ago it wasn't like this. When I it what was it 2017, I was getting ready to do the Invictus Games
Mhm.
in Toronto, and I ended up in rehab.
Oh well.
Until you get help, you're not allowed back in the house because I was drinking heavy. I was taking a lot of pills. I'd been in a bad ATV accident about 2 weeks after I got home from my second tour in Afghanistan, and broke my back, shattered my left arm, like 9 hour surgery to put my arm back together. Uh, so when I was in the States, I came back to Canada to go on a course. I got such a bad infection in my leg, I almost lost my leg. Like it was just
Oh
a lot,
wow.
and I wasn't taking care of myself because I was just my head was just on one thing, right? Like it was always just the crappy stuff, like my life's crap. I couldn't wasn't sleeping. I was drinking heavy.
Hmm.
Then rehab in 2017. I got out of rehab, and 2 weeks later, I was in the Invictus Games, completely crapped out. But that wasn't the point, right? The point was to look at I can do this, and it was a huge change in my life between rehab and then Invictus happening.
Hmm.
And as I carried on with different things, and then I also as I got into the psychedelics, and I started working with psychedelics and cannabis and started getting off the SSRIs, all the different meds I was on.
Yeah.
I started to open in my head a bit, and I said, you know what, I gotta, even though there's the horrible days, like the days where I just don't even want to be here, but there's still you got to look at it and say, hey, there's a good out of it somewhere, right?
Hmm.
You know, rehab and everything was 2017, 2018, and a year ago, what's the date today?
17th, 18th.
The 18th. 11 months tomorrow, my wife and I, after 24 years, went, we're done. See you later.
Oh wow.
And she moved to British Columbia with my daughter. Our daughter's 21. Like,
Yeah.
but you know what?
An
That was
adult.
all a part of the process too. Like
Yeah.
it absolutely sucked. But the way my life changed and the things I kind of opened my eyes to, you know, and that's a big part of it is, I try to take even the worst day, I'll find something small. I don't care if I made a good coffee that morning and that was the only thing all
Yeah.
day. that's what I take as the good. And I'll, you know what, I'll make that the best thing of my day. I had a good coffee. If that's the only good thing to happen,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But I strive. I try to remember those little things that, like, okay, I had a good coffee because that might be it for the day.
And so, Scott, take me through you leaving the army. Like, take me through that, and then we can kind of get into like the psychedelics and how all that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
working.
I, you know, when I got out of the army, I was angry. I wasn't long out of rehab. Wasn't new in this new sober world I was living in. Um, you know, I was angry because I was on my way out of the army. I didn't know what was going to come next. Um, it was anger, and you know, I look back on it now, and I feel like, oh, what a dick
Is
to
oh man.
everybody. Um,
Were you just quick, like just kind of like everything bugged you, or like just
oh
snapping at
yeah,
people for not, yeah,
at the time, oh,
aggravated?
aggravation was horrible.
Oh,
Like driving, like I drive like an idiot. I'm screaming at people out the windows and just
yeah.
causing problems everywhere. Even though I wasn't drinking, the anger was just fueling me constant. And
Jeez.
you know, I just started like I said, looking at the good things of a day instead of everything being negative, and I tried to build it up from that.
Yeah. Nice. So what was take us through now kind of what was your like introduction to, is it psilocybins? Is that the correct word to
Yeah,
use? Or
yeah,
yeah, okay, we'll use that. Psychedelics, you know, like
yeah.
I'm curious, when did that start to begin? Like what was your first, like
I
what was your introduction to them like?
started with cannabis
Mhm.
when I was getting out, because I really wanted to get off the pills, off all the SSRIs, everything. It took me almost a year to
Just heavy painkillers?
heavy painkillers, mental health, you know, everything, and
Oof.
it just makes you a zombie, right?
It
I
almost
was
makes
just
you worse off.
I
Like I've
for
never
sure.
talked to anybody where it helps. I've talked to hundreds of
No,
people about this, and they're yeah, the pills never really work. I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
it works, but it works in a different way because it just keeps you like, I don't care. I don't care.
ah,
You know, I started really working with cannabis, and it got me to that next spot. But you know, there's the way I say it. Cannabis is like trying to put a bandage on a cut. You have to change, like on a bad cut. You have
yeah,
psychedelics is like a suture, and if you take care of that suture, it's gonna last. You know, you take care of
nice.
yourself with diet, with your sleep, with your exercise, your stretching, yoga, whatever you do,
Yeah.
and you keep that clean, that is going to last. You're going to have your crappy days where a suture might open and you quickly can fix it, but
Mhm.
you know, you keep up with that, and that's what's going to happen with it. And I had, through friends, I had started microdosing and understanding and
Yeah.
researching a lot, because with cannabis and psychedelics, the research is endless. And
Yeah. Oh, no kidding.
and so I started microdosing, and I had a chance to go to Jamaica with a startup company out of Toronto,
Oh, wow.
Wake Wellness, and I went with them and for a uh, psilocybin retreat in Jamaica, and it was a life changer. I was with Riley Cote, the hockey player.
Oh, wow.
Uh, there was a couple other people there from Canada, and it opened my eyes to a lot. And I didn't know really if it was where I needed to be yet. I didn't know where I wasn't understanding everything. Let's say that. And when I came home, I was introduced to ketamine therapy in
Mhm.
Toronto, and I ended up doing 8 sessions of ketamine. It's dark. It's much slower moving. I found
Yeah.
very associated, very much a dissociative throughout the whole thing. Uh, COVID happened, and I was just kind of doing things myself and learning and doing things. And then 4 months ago, Heroic Hearts Project out of the US contacted me, and I got to go to Jamaica again
Oh
with
wow.
10 other veterans, American and British. And we were there for 5 days doing yoga, meditation, and 2 psilocybin journeys.
Oh
The second journey we did, and it absolutely changed the way I look at things, the way I understand things, the way I am.
yeah.
It was just, it was the absolute hardest time of my life.
Hmm.
It was 8 grams, 7 hours. And yeah, it was the absolute hardest of my life, but it was also the greatest time of my life, you know.
Yeah, man. Scott, take me through that. What happened? Like what was the experience like, if
So
you can remember as much or
yeah, it it was good starting out, you know, just kind of hanging. There's
nice.
there's musicians. There was the Rasta medicine woman, the Rasta medicine man. There was a Costa Rican medicine man.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
The shamans.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the music, the setting. We were outside in Jamaica. We're outside. There's these flowers falling
Yeah.
around,
Amazing.
and I went pretty deep with the music, with the setting, and everything. And I unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I went through about a couple hours of reliving the night that put me into rehab. I never really
Wow.
remembered I had been drinking so heavy that night, but I relived every step of this going through it, and it hurt. I saw every bit of it, and you know the monster in me, the horrible person I was, that I know I was, and it's the acceptance of where I am now, right?
Hmm.
And so I went through that, and you know a lot of help from the people that were there, that were part of it, the facilitators. And I kind of got moved away to another spot. And as the one Rasta medicine woman was singing to me, she's trying to bring me through. All of a sudden, I turned around and I was like, "Hey, mom!" My mom passed
Wow.
years ago, and then I'm talking to my mother, and she's telling me, "You're doing a good job. You're doing good, being part of everything, and bringing the joy and
Yeah.
happiness to people that really want to heal, that want to be part of life again."
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez. And you could like vividly see everything taking place, almost as if
Oh
you're
yeah, yeah,
what?
yeah.
Oh man.
So
Jeez, that's
like I said,
intense.
it was the worst. It was the worst, and then it was the best at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And
Jeez.
not only like the whole journey, like the setting, the music, everything, but also the people that were there. There was 11 of us veterans there, and we're still, to this day, we talk every day. The group of us, we're so close still. We've already set up we're going to meet in Texas in February. We're
Nice.
just, it's a family. Like it's a brotherhood of us now, that we all understand where we've been. And there's such an array of people.
Mhm.
We had helicopter pilots, we had special forces, you know, and then the two Canadians, one from Newfoundland, one from Ontario.
Oh man, wow. That's
It
exciting
was
though.
not being there with these
Yeah.
guys. And you know even the facilitators that do it, Jesse Gould, he's a former ranger himself that started Heroic Hearts Project.
Yeah.
And where it's going now too, like in Canada, we've now clinically, mushrooms, psilocybin, and NBMA are legal clinically. Down in the States, they're moving stuff along. They just approved ibogaine for opioid abusers in Kentucky.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's moving so well now, and because it's going to be so much help for people once this.
Hmm. Yeah, so before we kind of like before we jump into kind of connect and everything, I want to kind of understand what does the Canadian like military do for treating their veterans with PTSD? Like, what is their, do they have like an exit system? Because I feel they almost diagnose, like, oh, you have PTSD. And then I'm imagining they don't just leave you with that. Like, they give some form, like, maybe here's a brochure, like, here's a process, here's some people you can call, or like they set you up with
Well,
somebody. Like, how does that work?
they Veterans Affairs has done better at this in recent years. I can remember I got home from Yugoslavia. It was off the bus and into the car and go home. Never talked to anybody again.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was 1998. Really, that's not that long ago.
No.
Uh,
25 years, give or take.
Once we got to Afghanistan, we were we would go for into Cyprus for a couple of days of mental health awareness. It was called the Road to Mental Readiness,
Oh, cool.
R2MR, and they started it. Unfortunately, when we started going into Yugo, it was still the Bosnia guys who we were already hurting a bit, but we still were for help because now we're going to Afghanistan. We're going to war where we some of us have trained our whole lives to do this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And people weren't going to say they were hurt. And as it started coming out, people were there were more suicides. There were more people asking for help. VAC did start changing stuff, and now VAC has its holes, but VAC, I believe, does take care of people. If you say I have problems, I'm not well, they will set you up. They will help you get a doctor. They will work with everything. I've seen some people in weeks get turned around. Some
Oh,
people
amazing.
longer. It's definitely, there's always going to be the arguments on it,
Yeah,
right?
it's individual based.
100%.
Yeah.
But I find nowadays most of the people there are the tools there for people to be taken care of. A lot of it is with the doctors. A lot of it is SSRIs with the mental health pharmaceuticals.
Mhm.
I'm not always a big fan on that, but I'm also not a doctor. So
Yeah, fair enough.
the tools are there. The tools are there, and they're there. And to be honest, VAC and the Canadian military are some of the most open with cannabis. Uh, you go onto a base now, and there's cannabis consumption areas.
Oh, wow.
Cut down the drinking. It's cut down the problems. It's cut a
Wow.
lot. Military made it so open. Of course, there's timelines on it. You can't drive, can't handle weapons or whatever. Just
Yeah,
like alcohol.
that makes sense. I feel it has like cannabis has a much better like almost repercussions if you do it too much of it, right? Like if you do too much of it, you just become like even more relaxed. I mean, there are, like we said, the cases individually for like, you could get more paranoid, but I feel
Yeah,
it's like you said, safe consumption
yeah.
sites. So that's the whole point, is
But
to
when it
support
when
and
it,
avoid that.
when it proves right there, because there's always such the drinking culture in the military,
Yeah,
and it has gone away. The drinking culture isn't like it was in the '90s when I joined, but
I can imagine. Jeez.
uh, cannabis did help that, and because now instead of going out to the bars and going drinking and getting in fights, and a lot of the newer young soldiers now will stay in, smoke something, and play video games.
More contained.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not arresting people every night. There isn't the shacks being kicked in from out all the people fighting and play fighting.
Jeez.
It's solved a lot of problems.
Nice. That's
So
cool to see that there's like an actual like that solutions are being implemented and that things like it's nice to see growth.
it is,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's arguments against it too on
Yeah.
I yeah, I try to help people on the scientific side of cannabis too, right?
Yeah.
And
So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna like switch to that. Like I was curious how yeah, I was just curious how you're able to like how do you just have like resources you give to people when they ask you or
About
yeah,
cannabis.
about cannabis and stuff like
You
that?
know, everybody's different, right?
Mm,
Especially with cannabis, and everybody's cannabinoid system is different. And
interesting.
one thing that may work excellent for me could never work for the person sitting next to me, right?
Yeah,
There's one I can take two full mills of it and I can carry on my day and I'm laughing, I'm working, I'm having fun. I know other people that take zero point 0.5 of the sativa and they're asleep for 6 hours.
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, and I work on the, I try to really help people on the medical side, recreational is up to them. But, I work with an 89-year-old Korean War veteran on how to use cannabis properly. It's mostly gummies and a bit of oil, but
Oh wow.
it helps him with the pain.
Jeez.
So I've he's my oldest client, but I quite a few of my clients are 70s, and to them, cannabis is like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
illegal. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a it takes time sometimes to get some people to understand, and then when they jump in, whether it's using a cream on their shoulder, a CBD cream that digs right in, it's something it can help.
I was wondering how you want to expand on that a bit about kind of ruin like going against the stigma like because there is a stigma around like you said like the yeah just by your
Yeah.
reaction like oh yeah I can only imagine from like what you've seen because if I know there's a stigma and I see it every day I'm like you probably see it tenfold so
Yeah.
how do you go about kind of almost reverse engineering that stigma like reversing it so that people kind of can actually open up their mind to what medical stuff can help them
It's a little bit easier now because there are so many different products on the market, right? You've got
yeah
well, like I said, the cream.
creams
You
yeah
have edibles. You have the little capsules. You have like a Listerine strip almost. You have that as CBD, and there's so many different ways now. It's a little bit easier with the stigma, but a lot of it is discussion, like being here in the clinic and just vets sitting and talking, and they hear about different things and go, okay, a cream isn't really cannabis, so I can use that.
yeah
As long as they aren't smoking it.
I just think that's the one, eh? Like it's
Yeah.
always because it's a smoking thing, they're like, shut off a
Well,
bit more
even
to it.
people figure when they come into a Canna Connect here that there's going to be just people lined up smoking joints at the bar, and nobody smokes it.
Come on. Yeah. No kidding, eh? Oh, that's
Um,
funny though. Jeez.
yeah, there's like I said, there's so many things on the market. It's people are now kind of okay. I've heard this is going to work, and I don't have to smoke it. So, and it's funny because even doctors don't want to talk about it. I just had somebody today say their doctor told them it's the gateway to all the other drugs, and they're going to be addicted to something else in the next little while. They were just told that today.
Yeah, by a doctor, you're gonna be a meth head because you started rubbing
Yeah,
some cream on you.
yeah.
Relax.
So, but it's funny with psychedelics.
Yeah.
There, doctors are supporting this 100%. You know,
Interesting.
the average person, and it doesn't matter the age. I've talked to seniors, I've talked to younger people. They all think psychedelics are the way to go. So,
Really.
yeah.
That just what do you think is attributing that to? Like what do you have to attribute that
Um,
to? Just
there's
a
a
lot of
couple,
research?
some of the research with, especially with the doctors, with the medical side. In my own thoughts for outside of medical,
Yeah.
I personally think because you don't see it on the news, you don't hear it constantly. Over the last
Ah,
over the last 20 years, before legalization in Canada, you'd hear somebody got busted with half a gram of pot or something, but you
ah,
heard it every day. Somebody got busted.
yeah.
When do you ever hear about mushrooms or psilocybin?
Yeah.
Never. And that's just a little.
Wow.
I think is just a part of it.
Interesting observation, though, Scott. Wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah, because nobody talks about it. So everybody,
No, there's no
and
stigma around that,
no,
like, or
and
at
then all
least
you
in mainstream media.
good it is and how good it's working for people. And I even hear people like the people will ask me about psilocybin, and then they'll say, "Well, I've heard LSD is doing pretty good." We're hitting a new level with people saying that they've heard LSD is good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then when you look at everything else, like ibogaine, where they're starting to use that in the U.S. for addictions, it's blowing up everywhere. MDMA is actually, like I said, clinically legal in Canada now,
Hmm. Incredible.
where it's things like that are just they're taking another step, and it's veterans, just like cannabis was. It's veterans that are pushing agenda and making it happen in both Canada and the US.
Wow. Do you have an example of like maybe a patient you've had or a client of yours recently that's like you mentioned your like the oldest client you have, the like Korean War veteran. He do you have an example similar? It doesn't have to be him, but an example where you've seen like them start off really bad and because of the treatment it worked out really well, like a testimonial almost.
For cannabis,
Yeah, not more the psilocybins.
psilocybin. Well, you know
Yeah,
what? I'll use me as an example
amazing. Yeah,
in it, right? Like with the microdosing. And when I went to Jamaica, one of the guys I met there, like we've been friends since then, and we went again 4 months ago.
yeah,
So that first time in Jamaica, I was close to 300 pounds. I couldn't cross my legs sitting in yoga. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move properly. I was in
yeah.
pain constantly. Now, fast forward, we'd stayed friends, but we hadn't seen each other in the 3 years. He walked in and saw me, and he started crying.
No.
You know, I'm
Wow.
not, at the time I was down to 194 pounds. I'm now going to be a yoga instructor. I'm
Wow.
working on so much of myself, and it's like a brighter light around me some days. And just where I've come from now, from where I was, the drunken fighter that I was 5 6 years ago,
Yeah,
to now where I've changed the way I think, I've changed the way I act, I've slowed down. I think about myself more and where I am and what I'm doing more. And it's taken me a long time to realize where I am. And there's still things every day where I kind of go, yeah, I did that. you know, um, or I'm getting asked to do different things. To I've been asked now to write a few notes and books to be printed, and a forward for a book. I'm kind of coming out of my shell now at 50 and doing these things, right?
yeah.
My wife, it's there's a lot of people that were there behind me, and life isn't always the straight line you want it to be.
Never.
uh, but it is what
Nope.
it is. You got to live with it and take the cards you're dealt with and make the best of them.
That's it. Yeah, man, I love that, Scott. Like that's awesome, man. Like that's yeah, like good for you. Jeez, like
uh,
that's a lot. Like that seems like such a crazy growth chart of your
it
life. Like that seems insane.
it happened. I don't know, to me it happened fast.
Yeah,
But you know and like I said, not all of it's been every day excellent. It's
no.
ups and downs. There was a couple months there where, because I just spent the whole 45 minutes crying all the way to work.
Yeah,
And and but I found I can't live in that every day. I
no.
can't heard of that every day. I have to be happier, and whether that's making myself be happy, thinking of I had a good coffee this morning. It has to be that, right?
Yes.
And because there are days where that's the best thing that happens, and
Yeah.
you know,
Do you find I found this recently, and I don't know if it'll be like if you kind of do it or whatever, but just like with what I've been reading, um, I've tried to find. So with one of the books I'm reading, it's been kind of showing me how a lot of people are, we're creatures of a lot of things, but primarily we're creatures of emotion. So in order to like go through the bad days or the good days, because it's not sustainable for me to believe, like I wouldn't trust you if you said every day is great since, like it's not real, right? Or if I said to you, hey Scott, I've only ever had good days, you'd be like, why are you lying to me, we just met. So it wouldn't, right, it wouldn't really make sense.
yeah,
So I find with the with that, it's looking at, I've tried to find and put into practice lately, looking at days, like really bad days, objectively. Like I almost like sit back and be like, all right, if this is a bad, oh, the coffee tastes great, but oh, this bad thing happened, this bad thing. Okay, we're in what we call a bad day. Let's take a step back and look and go, okay, let's just get through this. It's going to be bad. Just expect bad things. Bad things are going to happen. It's just how the day is going to be. And then I almost find I'm able to like manage it out, like manage my stress a bit better after that. Right. It's
yeah,
like you kind of, as tough as it is to like sometimes on the bad days remove the emotion. I've just found lately just putting into practice, like, okay, let's look at it objectively and then try to find ways that we can improve the day. Like, let's pick apart, okay, what went well? Oh, that went well. Well, we made it to work without getting in an accident. Check.
yeah.
Amazing, right?
It's and it's sometimes hard to pick out those good things
Oh
in a
yeah.
day, and because your brain doesn't want to let you pick
No,
out.
it's weird.
You still want to stay on that. This is a bunch of
Yeah.
shit, and you aren't meaning to, but you're making it the whole day yourself. You're making it crappy,
Yeah.
right? And you know, I don't know if you like on Facebook. I do a page called The Path. I do a thing called The Path,
Yeah.
and I started that after another friend had committed suicide, and about a year ago.
Oh wow. It's
And
recent.
I kind of, the first post I did was kind of a frustration. I was like, everybody has a path. Everybody has has a reason, and find that reason. Just make that reason. Take whatever that shitty day is and make it something good.
Hmm.
And you have a path. Follow that path. If that path, if you run into something that's hard, back up, adjust, go a different way sometimes, because you can't be sitting in that bad spot all day, all night, every day. You need
No.
to look around, ask for help if you need. Maybe to actually just look at that problem from a different view and then reattack that problem.
That's a big one. I think you mentioned looking at problems from different angles or different lenses, right? Like
Yeah,
try to removing, because like we were just talking about the emotion of it. Like we're all like, man, we're so close to the tree, we don't see the forest. So I think it's like something like that, right? And it's, that's interesting though.
yeah, and
It's
that's
interesting.
and that's where it comes in. Don't be afraid to ask for help,
That's a
because
big one.
you're not, 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get there alone,
Oh God, no. Like almost never.
right? And
Yeah.
you know the old ways of Jack Daniels and Jim Beam helping you get in there. We've now noticed that doesn't help as much.
No, not as much as I'm sure we would have liked.
You think at the
But
time, well,
yeah, and then you have all this research, you're like, there are better solutions.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And it just takes that, excuse me, it takes that little bit to understand why it doesn't help. The
Yeah.
depression else that comes along with it, the hangover.
Yeah, sometimes worse. Jeez.
Yeah.
But man, so with that, Scott, I'm curious. Talk to me about Canada Connect. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about like a bit about how it got started, the mission statement, stuff like that.
Well, it was started in Toronto. Three friends kind of started it just before cannabis became legal. We now have 15 sorry, 14 offices across Canada, from Newfoundland to Victoria, St. John's, Newfoundland to Victoria. And they're all run by, we've all got veteran ambassadors there. We've got the veteran ambassadors, like myself, that we try to not only help with cannabis, but, help on the support side, kind of point them on that path in the right direction, who to talk to in VAC, who to talk to as a doctor, how to find a doctor, the support aspect, just coming in to talk. And that's a lot of the part I like, just coming in to talk and to be part of a life again, to be part of a community again. Because that's what so many people get out of the military. Not in the military, they get out of the police force, the fire department, a paramedic, whatever. They want that community again of like-minded people.
Mm-hmm. It's tough to find.
It absolutely can be. Legions, unfortunately, aren't it anymore.
Why do they just stop?
There's too many pages to that question.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the Legion, unfortunately, isn't looked at great by a
No,
lot. That's a whole
that's a
other
shame. Yeah,
whole
that's
other.
a shame.
So as I've said, like, we try to have that for vets and first responders to come to feel safe, to be able to talk, to learn. Like, even if people just want to come in and ask a couple of questions about cannabis or something, or even just mental health, that here, I sat with one of our clients the other day explaining just basic how to get around yoga moves, and
Cool.
that person just, I thought that was the greatest thing ever, just spending some time, sit like this and sit like this, or sit with this cushion, because it just showed them something new, and how they were able to, wow, I can actually do this. Like, that sense of accomplishment for something so small can be so huge to some veterans and first responders, right?
Yeah.
Sense of accomplishment of being able to do one little move, right? And then I also try to help vets and first responders get a sense of responsibility again, help with little tasks around here, whether it's setting up Quilts of Valor date, or
Yeah.
setting up a barbecue or something. Just that little bit of responsibility, just to start building in them again and understanding where they are.
Oh, I can imagine. It's huge.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And really got me here, somebody trusted me, and the guys said, here you go, let's open this office, and you're the ambassador.
Wow.
So, it gave me a huge responsibility
You
to
don't
be,
say.
but it keeps me alive being here. I never mind putting in my time here, because the sitting and talking with veterans and first responders, it does a lot at times, because they're understanding it. I was there. I was in that spot a couple of years ago. The daily suicidal thoughts, the daily just beating myself up day after day, mentally and physically, like, with,
Yeah.
in my head, telling myself I'm just a horrible person. I can't do anything. I should be dead. As I turn around and have another drink, and
Yeah.
to where I am, where, admittingly, I'm not the best person with myself, but I'm better.
Nice.
But I also understand
Yeah.
myself a lot deeper than
That's
I
huge.
did with alcohol, right?
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's huge. Jeez, I feel too that must really help the veterans, especially if you've gone through, like, it's different if I try my best to, like, oh, well, help me understand, and to, you're like, they know before they come in, like, this person who's a representative can relate to me. It's like he's
Yeah,
been in the field. He had this huge responsibility of, like, representing the country or, like, fighting for it. And then now you're in this thing where it's like, well, what do we do? We had such a big thing. Like, how do we ever even come close to, like, feeling that sense of fulfillment? And so being able to relate to that is, man, that sounds powerful. So it's really cool. That's like a really
yeah,
cool opportunity you have.
yeah, and that's why I don't mind talking about where I've been, what I've done with it. Like, sure, rehab sucked. the the admitting to myself that
Yeah.
I had to be there, and then you're going through thinking you're a complete failure. You've let everybody down, you know, and then as you learn a bit about yourself, like, all right, you kind of look at different ways, and sure, there's still a lot of responsibility on me because it was me that decided to pick up the cranks or take the pills and
Yeah.
do it. I, but you learn you're not such a failure because of things, and that's why I still continue to today. I don't really bother with alcohol or anything. It's just I've really realized I don't need it. It's not me anymore,
Nice.
and I'm a completely better person without it.
Huh, amazing. Man, that's awesome. Do you it's called so do you have kind of like a final, let's call it, as we kind of before we conclude, do you have a like a final message or a point or story you want to use to kind of like give a whole, bring
You
the
know what?
message home?
You know what? And in the journey of mental health, in the journey of mental health healing, there's no linear path. Every path goes every way, and sometimes you need to roll with it. Sometimes you need to back up. And the biggest thing out of all of it is taking care of yourself and understanding your limits and abiding by those, and you know just taking care of yourself along the way. And that's the biggest thing people have to realize is that little bit of taking care of yourself can mean the whole world the next day.
Wow. Amazing.
I just said it the other day on a Facebook post. My Facebook posts are like this too, like pretty honest, like this.
I
And
love it.
I said
Nice.
I was I said I was close to burning out, like because I've been so busy, and I had to stop and step back from a few things, and a couple of things I really wanted to do. I wanted to go see Radiohead this past weekend.
I
Well,
would have been sick.
it's not Radiohead; it's their new band, but it's
Yeah.
but no, I just need to stop.
Yeah.
I already did one thing this week. I went to see World Cup rugby, and that was enough.
That sounds exciting though.
It was good. I played for
Yeah.
20, and
Oh, so
uh,
you like understand it, you know it and everything.
I make it look good.
It's like I can fake it well enough. Yeah.
I faked it for 25 years playing. So,
Amazing. Oh, that's hilarious.
uh,
And
you
so,
know, really just people to like the world's a beautiful place. But we all make mistakes, and sometimes it's just realizing those mistakes are mistakes and just carrying on and making yourself a better person from learning from those mistakes.
I love it. Nice. Scott, where can I'll roll the red carpet for you. Where can people find you? Where can people read about you? Where can people connect? Where can people see what the
Uh,
business
I'm
is doing?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Scott Atkinson, and yeah, anytime people reach out and chat, I'm always there to chat.
Amazing. Perfect. Yeah, so to end it, I'm Scott, I really appreciate your time today, man. Like that was fun. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful you were able to sit down with me and share your story with me and the audience. So I really really appreciate it, man. I'm grateful. Thank you, brother.